Everyone. Brick City Brown Chick coming back at you this week. It is the week of the end of the fan voting for the nominations for the 2025 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. So the way the process works is the fans get to vote for it's like 30 or 45 days. You can vote once a day. For this year, it's up to 7 acts. Some year it's been 5, but this year it is 7. And what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame says is it takes the fan vote into account when it decides who will be inducted. If you saw my earlier video this week, I talked about the nominating process and how that works. So I won't go through that again. All I will say is that the nominating committee does not always agree with the fans, and they don't have to. It's not set up that way. So there have been years that people have come in the top 1 or 2 in the fan vote, and the committee chose not to select them that year. And there have also been years when people have come out near the bottom of the fan vote, and the nominating committee has selected them. So, regardless of how the fan vote ends, that doesn't mean those will be the finalists for the Rock Hall. So, just so everybody's clear on that. But I wanted to talk about this year's nominees and specifically the few that I am pulling for. Like I said in the last video, we won't know who will be selected until end of April, beginning of May, when the nominating committee sits down and makes their choices for the induction list. That is when we'll know. What we'll know by the end of this week is who wins the fan voting, who came out in the top 3 or 5 in the fan votes. So let me go through the entire list of the people who are nominated this year, and then I'll talk to you about who I am rooting for and why. So this year's list includes Bad Company, The Black Crowes, Mariah Carey, Chubby Checker, Joe Cocker, Billy Idol, Joy Division / New Order. They have put them together. Cyndi Lauper, Mana, Oasis, Outkast, Fish, Soundgarden, and the White Stripes. So those are the nominees for this year. So the fans have a chance until, I think, midnight tomorrow, which is tax day, April 15th. Somehow that's appropriate, to decide who they want to win the fan vote. The last time I checked, Fish was running away with the fan vote. And I know some Fish fans. They are hardcore. They are serious. So that's who is winning the fan vote as of a couple of days ago. I'm going to go through my short list of 4 or 5 artists that I am really pulling for to go into the hall this year. So first on my list is Mariah Carey. I have never been a Mariah stan. I know some Mariah stans, and if you're Gen X or older, if you want to know what a stan is, it's a super fan. That's what a stan is. I know some Mariah stans, and they are hardcore, and you will not say anything disparaging about Miss Carey around them, period. End of conversation. Mariah has gone through her moods and her phases and her divaness, but what I will say is there is no questioning her talent and her abilities. Mariah Carey took over the Billboard charts in a time when women solo artists didn't really do that. And she had the kind of voice that just blew other people out of the water, with the exception of Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston is already in the hall, and I believe Mariah Carey also deserves to be in the hall. In terms of influence, we would not have artists like Adele or Ariana Grande or Christina Aguilera or Beyonce without the influence and the career of Mariah Carey. So for me, she absolutely deserves to be in the hall. My next choice is the Black Crowes. Now, I have been a Black Crowes fan since way back in the day. They became popular in the early 90s at a time when grunge was taking over everything, when all you heard about was Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. The Black Crowes just sort of kicked in the door for old time guitar driven Southern rock. And that's really what the Black Crowes represent. If you listen to the Black Crowes, you'll hear a lot of Leonard Skinner influence. You'll hear Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers influence. If you listen to songs like Twice as Hard and Jealous Again, you'll really hear how strong those influences are. The Black Crowes have been one of those bands that has gone in and out of fashion. They've broken up, they've gotten back together. The lead singer, Chris Robinson, and the guitar player, Rich Robinson, are brothers, and there's a whole lot of angst and sibling rivalry and all the crazy things that go along with that. They're not to the level of the Gallagher brothers from Oasis, who is also up for the Hall this year, but the Robinson brothers have definitely had their challenges, which has, I think, diminished the band's career in a way. They spent years not recording, not touring because they were angry with each other. And I think that's robbed the fans of a lot of good music that they could have been producing. But nonetheless, I really do think that the Black Crowes belong in the hall for what they showed other music could sound like in a time when guitar driven rock and roll was not popular, was not a thing. The band that I am pulling for most this year is Joy Division / New Order. Now, I am a New Order stan. I have loved New Order since college. And if you've been to a dance party since 1987, I guarantee you that you have heard a New Order song. Blue Monday, Bizarre Love Triangle, I guarantee you, because New Order is synth pop dance music that just gets everybody up and out on the floor. Now, the question for those of you who are not into New Order is, why is the nomination Joy Division / New Order? Joy Division was the predecessor to New Order. Joy Division was fronted by a singer named Ian Curtis. And on the eve of their first American tour, the song that everybody knows from Joy Division is Love Will Tear Us Apart. When that song was becoming popular and going up the charts, and Joy Division was about to embark on its first US tour, Ian Curtis, who had many years of mental illness, unalived himself at a hotel they were staying at. And so that left the band without a singer and without a writer, because he wrote most of their songs. So in the aftermath of Curtis's death and in their grief, the band decided it wanted to move on. It wanted to continue to make music, but they knew they could not make music as Joy Division because that was really Ian. So they changed their name to New Order. Now, a lot of people think the name New Order is about New World Order or something sinister or something like George Orwell 1984. And that's not what it's about. It's just a name they selected because they wanted to reflect that they were different than the band they came from. New Order is amazing live. I saw them finally for the first time about 4 years ago, and they really are, for a synthesizer based band, they really are stripped down, no nonsense. Here's the music. They don't do elaborate stage shows. They have a screen behind them that runs certain pictures and phrases. They don't dress up. They show up in their jeans and their sneakers, and they're just going to play, and they're just going to be great. So I am really pulling for them. I'm not sure if they'll be inducted because they are not American, they are British. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is not great with non American music. They do it sometimes, obviously, for people like the Beatles and the Stones, but it's not something the Rock Hall does frequently. So I really hope that they choose Joy Division / New Order for 2025. The next artist I am pulling for is Cyndi Lauper. With Cyndi Lauper, most people know the song Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Like, that's the song everybody knows. The song that most people know is Time After Time. What I've always admired about Cyndi Lauper is she and Madonna came up about the same time. But when Madonna hit it big, she was in her early 20s. When Cyndi Lauper hit it big, when Girls Just Want to Have Fun came out, Cyndi Lauper was already well into her 30s. So she was a woman who really pushed that boundary of no, you don't have to be an ingenue. No, you don't have to be 20 something. And no, you don't have to look like Madonna or Joan Jett or Pat Benatar or look like one of those classically beautiful, thin women. Cyndi Lauper was a whole different type of person. She had multicolored hair, she wore crazy outfits, she wore crazy makeup, and it really did make girls in my age group, I think I was 13 when Girls Just Want to Have Fun came out, it made us take a second look and go, oh, yeah, we can be different and look different and still be cool and still be fun. And over the years, Cyndi Lauper's career has really, I guess, matured is a good word. I know she's on her farewell tour right now. She is a woman in her 70s. And she did not let her career take over her life. A lot of people do that. She got married, she has a son, she did all those things. And I just thought she was an amazing example of, as a musician, as a female musician especially, if you don't have your breakthrough until your 30s, that's cool. You can still come in and kick the door down and kick ass. I've seen her live. She is amazing. Her voice has aged so well. And I really think without Cyndi Lauper, artists like Pink and Gaga and Nicki Minaj and Chappell Roan would not be what they are. She is really the woman who kicked down the door for those artists. So I am pulling for Cyndi Lauper. And the last of this year's nominees that I am pulling for is Outkast. Outkast was made up of Andre 3000 and Big Boy. And when Outkast came out in the late 1990s, it was East Coast and West Coast rap. That was what rap was. You were either from the East, you're from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, somewhere in the East, or you're from the West, you're from California. And that's really where rap was. It was East Coast, West Coast. And Outkast came in and said, hey, the South has something to say. And that was the genesis of things like crunk music, which later came out with people like Little John. Outkast were the guys who opened the door for what became known as the Dirty South and what Atlanta would bring to rap music. And Outkast has been hugely influential. The Outkast song that everybody knows is Hey Ya. The other Outkast song everybody knows is Miss Jackson. And there are so many other songs, So Fresh, So Clean, The Way You Move. They really did put a Southern spin on a genre that until they came along, people were convinced had to be East Coast or West Coast. What do you represent in the East or the West? And Outkast said, no, we represent the South. We represent Atlanta. And so many artists who have come after them have cited Outkast as an influence. People like Kendrick Lamar, people like Janelle Monáe, people like J. Cole, Kid Cudi, and Killer Mike. Those are all artists that have cited Outkast and their visual presentation and their songwriting skills as the artists that helped them understand that they could be who they were coming from the South, coming from places like Atlanta, coming from places like St. Louis, coming from places like Florida. So without Outkast, a lot of the artists that are popular in today's hip hop scene would not be who they are. So those are the artists I am pulling for 2025. Mariah Carey, The Black Crowes, Joy Division / New Order, Cyndi Lauper, and Outkast. We'll know the fan vote by the end of this week, so we'll see if I'm on target or totally off the mark and have to wait until 2026. I want to thank everybody for listening today, and please let me know down in the comments who you are pulling for this year. For example, my mother told me she's pulling for Chubby Checker because Chubby Checker's from the 1950s and that was her time of music, and so that's who she's pulling for. So I thought that was super interesting. So please let me know in the comments who you are rooting for and why you're rooting for them. If you are not subscribed to this YouTube channel, to this podcast, there is a link somewhere immediately down below me. I ask that you subscribe, also that you pass the podcast on to other people so that they can hear it and they can subscribe. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I will see you again next week. Take care.